Good morning, boys and girls, and happy Sabbath. Welcome to Sabbath School. So glad you can join me here this morning. Our lesson today is called, Do You Love Me? So as we get started, I want you to think at home about what are some foods that animals eat. Some that I came up were grass. Cows eat grass, right? Also meat. Some animals eat each other, like lions. And plankton, which is a very small thing that is in the ocean that whales eat. But maybe you could think of some others. Our Bible story today is about Jesus and Peter. Jesus tells Peter to feed and care for his sheep. Who are Jesus' sheep? Think about that for a minute. The memory verse is, again, Jesus said, "Do you love me? Take care of my sheep." And that's John 21:16. We'll come back to that later. Jesus wanted to impress something upon Peter. If Peter loved Jesus, he would act like it. He would care for others. Jesus wants us to do the same. Our message today is we serve God when we take care of others. At this point in the Sabbath School, I invite you to pause the video and do some singing together at home. The two songs that I'm recommending today are We Are His Hands and I Will Make You Fishers of Men. You'll see links to these in our video description. Now that you're done with your singing, we're going to start our Bible lesson. Peter was restless. "I'm going fishing," he told the other disciples. At least fishing was doing something. It had been a while since Jesus had been crucified. He had appeared to the disciples twice since his resurrection. It was wonderful to see him and to know that he was alive. Jesus hadn't mentioned that Peter had denied him 3 times, but Peter was still very embarrassed and ashamed of what he had done. He asked God to forgive him. He may have thought that Jesus would no longer trust him. How much did the other disciples know about his denial of Jesus? Did they know how sorry he was? Some of the other disciples decided to go fishing with Peter. So just as the sun was going down, they got in Peter's boat and sailed across the water. They stayed out all night, but they caught nothing. What a waste of a night's work, Peter thought. Early in the morning, just as the sun was coming up, they headed for shore without any fish. As their boat got closer to shore, they noticed a man standing on the beach. The man called out, "Have you caught any fish?" The disciples replied, "No, none at all." The man called out again, "Throw your net on the right side of the boat and you'll find some fish there." Perhaps they wanted to please the man, or perhaps they just wanted to try once more. Whatever the reason, they did as the man said. Immediately, their nets were so full of fish that they couldn't even haul them into the boat. Then John recognized Jesus and called to Peter, "It is the Lord." Peter was so happy to see Jesus. Again, they were very close to shore, so Peter just decided not to wait. He jumped out of the boat and hurried to Jesus. The others followed him in the boat. When they reached the shore, they found that Jesus had made a fire. He was cooking some fish for them to eat together. After they enjoyed the fish and some bread, Jesus turned to Peter and asked, "Do you love me more than these?" Peter immediately answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus looked into Peter's eyes and said quietly, "Feed my lambs." Again, Jesus asked Peter if he loved him. "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter replied, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Again, Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." A third time, Jesus asked, "Peter, do you love me?" Peter didn't know what to think. Perhaps he wondered if Jesus didn't believe him. And why did Jesus ask that question 3 times? Was it because Peter had denied Jesus 3 times? Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him 3 times. With a heavy heart, Peter answered, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Again, Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." Finally, Jesus said to Peter, "Follow me." Peter must have been relieved to realize that Jesus had forgiven him. He knew now that Jesus still wanted him to follow him. Jesus asked Peter these questions while the other disciples watched. He wanted them to know that he had forgiven Peter. Jesus also wanted to teach Peter a lesson in patience, sympathy, and forgiveness. Peter would need to be patient, sympathetic, and forgiving as he would care for the many new believers of Jesus in the future. Jesus also wanted us to know that there is only one thing we must do to follow and serve him, and that's love him with all our hearts. And when we truly love Jesus, we will want to take care of others too. At this point, I'm going to read some questions, and I invite you to pause the video after the questions to discuss your answers together at home as a family. How did Jesus show his love for his disciples after they had fished all night? And why do you think Jesus prepared breakfast for the disciples? Next question. What did Jesus ask Peter 3 times? How did Peter answer each time? And what did Jesus ask Peter to do? Last question. Who are Jesus' sheep? Why did Jesus ask Peter 3 times? So remember, we serve God when we take care of others. We're now going to go over our memory verse again, which you remember is John 21, verse 16, which says, again, Jesus said, "Do you love me? Take care of my sheep." And I invite you to maybe rewind and replay that part of the video a few times until you can say it together and have it memorized. At this point, I'm going to ask you some scenarios. But before I do that, I want to read you a Bible verse. This verse is 1 Corinthians 13, and it's verses 1 to 3. If I could speak all the languages of earth and of angels, but didn't love others, I would only be a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If I had the gift of prophecy, and if I understood all of God's secret plans and possessed all knowledge, and if I had such faith that I could move mountains, but I didn't love others, I would be nothing. If I gave everything I have to the poor and even sacrificed my body, I could boast about it, but if I didn't love others, I would have gained nothing. All right. What are these verses talking about? It's talking about someone who is giving gifts or doing things for Jesus, but is doing it without loving him. So I'm going to read some scenarios, and I want you to show me your thumbs up signal and your thumbs down signal. Now, show me your thumbs up signal when I am reading along. I want you to put your thumbs up if at the end of each you're going to show me whether the person that I read about is showing that they had love in their lives and doing what Jesus wanted them to do. That's when you put the thumbs up. And if they were only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal, as the Bible verse says, then you're going to show me thumbs down, right? So if they're showing Jesus' love, thumbs up. Otherwise, thumbs down. So first scenario. Hunter goes to Sabbath school every week, and his family has worship with him almost every night. Hunter notices the driveway of a neighbor next door is scattered with old newspapers the neighbor hasn't picked up in several days. Hunter picks them up and piles them on the porch. Is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down scenario? Okay, number 2. Sabrina attends an Adventist school where she is in 3rd grade. Bible is her favorite subject, and she always gets an A in it. A new student comes in the middle of the school year. He has never been in school before because his family homeschooled with him. Sabrina makes fun of him because he is unfamiliar with the school schedule and he doesn't know how to play some of the games they play during recess. Is that thumbs up or thumbs down? Next scenario. Adam says that he is a Christian and loves Jesus. His little brother Eric wants to play with Adam and his older friends. Adam's friends tell Eric to go home and leave them alone. Adam sticks up for Eric, even though his friends say they don't want Eric around. Adam goes home with Eric and plays with him for a while. Thumbs up, thumbs down. All right, now we're going to move into our last scenario. Melanie likes to help her Sabbath school teacher greet visitors at the door and collect the offering. But at home on Sunday, she doesn't want to help her family clean the house or do yard work. She whines and complains and doesn't do her best. Is that thumbs up or thumbs down? How could you tell if the people in the scenarios I read truly had Jesus in their hearts? It was how they acted, right? What must you have that makes a difference in the way you act towards others? It's love, right? We talked about that in earlier on. When you give Jesus your whole heart, he will lead you to do things for him. One of those things is to help take care of others. Because remember, our message is we serve God when we take care of others. As we close today, I'm going to show you something that I made this week. Have you guys ever made a sock puppet? Well, I did. And this is Fluffy. And he is a sheep or a lamb. Hopefully you can kind of see him here. I'll try to get him closer, and that's his mouth. So this is just a reminder that we are Jesus's lambs and sheep, right? And he asks us to take care of his lambs and sheep. So we're supposed to help others. So how can we help and care for God's lambs and sheep? Hopefully you've come up with some ideas with the scenarios that we read. The good scenarios, that is. I want you to look for ways this week to help care for others. Maybe you could even make a sock puppet if you have an old sock at home and give it to somebody to remind them that they are a sheep or a lamb of God and that you love them and that Jesus does too. So remember, we serve God when we take care of others. I invite you to pray with me now. Dear Jesus, thank you so much for the Sabbath and for loving us. Help us to love others the way that you love us so that they can get to know you better. We look forward to going to heaven with you one day. In your name, amen. I hope you guys have a wonderful Sabbath. I miss you, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.